And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Construction of the Kenny Dam involved flooding 32,000 acres of land in order to create the Nechako Reservoir. This flooding impacted surrounding agricultural land and caused the loss of 8.7 million cubic meters of timber. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1991.
There's a huge amount of wood in the reservoir, but it's difficult to estimate just how much.
We don't have precise figures. It's all flooded, so the best guesstimates we have run somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 million cubic meters. Now, to give you an idea of what that represents, 10 million cubic meters would run a medium-sized pulp mill for 20 years in terms of total feedstock. So it's a very large quantity of wood. The history of it, as I'm sure most people are aware, when the Kitimat-Kamano project was initially conceived and built, of course the reservoir area was way out in the boondocks, as it were, virtually no road access, certainly too far from market to do anything constructive with it. Values were different at the time, and there was really not much more thought given to it but to flood it in order to create the reservoir. Values have changed, and we've been concerned for years now with trying to effect a cleanup, but it's a giant job, and we've been at it and making progress, albeit small progress annually.
Having been submerged in the reservoir for so many years, the wood is very heavy and wet, and it can't be used with green lumber in a conventional sawmill operation.
For starters, we don't have really existing technology that harvests trees underwater. So the machinery doesn't exist and has to be sort of devised as you go. And some progress has been made in adapting technology. Other problems are that of course you have difficulty locating the tree. Where the tips are sticking out, that helps. But a lot of the wood is completely submerged, and so there are experiments going on with using sonar for locating this wood underwater. Other problems include the wood is waterlogged, it's heavier, and that is a significant factor, for example, on transportation cost.
Many of the logs are being decked at Andrew Bay, and a small sawmill has been set up to process rough lumber. Some of the wood that's being harvested from the Nechako Reservoir is ending up back here in Kitimat at this woodworking shop to be processed for use in Kitimat Works. Dalmonte's Woodcraft supplies Alcan's Kitimat Works with stringers, which are used in the casting department to separate the ingots. Reservoir wood has been used now for several months.
I got the first load in April. The 4th of April, I have the first load.
And how has the quality been?
Good. No complaint whatsoever. It's good wood, sound wood, and everything.
The installation of special equipment has enabled the manufacture of stringers in 25 different sizes in considerable quantity.
Well, I estimate 1.25 million feet.
That's a lot to go through a small shop.
Oh, I don't know if you call a small shop.
Well, I always thought it was a small shop until I came down here and just saw exactly what you were doing.
Well, it's well equipped. Yes. That's why the equipment do the job.
So you install specialized equipment to manufacture this?
That's correct, yes.
And is that since 10 years ago?
No, just gradually building up as you go along, You just develop what you needed, and that's what it is. You find a better way to do it. Use your head, never mind use your back.
The machinery has meant the business can now be run as a family operation, with John Dalmonte's wife Amabile and daughter Lisa, when she's home from college, helping out.
8 years ago, we were average 4.5 people to do it. 1/3 what we do now.
4.5 people to do 1/3 of what you do now.
Yes, correct.
So that must have been obviously taken quite a bit of investment as well.
Yes. Hey, you know, I do have a good friend, bank friend.
That's what all the businessmen need, right?
You're right.
Alcan's new state-of-the-art casting center produces sheet and extrusion ingot now, so the inventory at the woodworking shop has had to be changed.
You need more 5x5. What are they taking now in 5x5? What they were taking before in a year, now they use in a month.
The amount of reservoir wood being utilized is still very small, and it must be determined whether commercial use can be found for larger quantities.
Tests have been done on the wood. They indicate that the fiber is usable in the pulping process. And now it's a matter of putting a combination of technology and business plan together that is cost effective enough to make it worth someone's while. No doubt one of the big problems in mounting a large scale operation are the enormous costs. Again, if you can buy technology and machinery off the shelf, that makes it easier. When you have to design it from scratch and take all the risks that go along with a jury-rigged or from scratch design type of operation, it's much more difficult and more time consuming. But we are working with some people that have some expertise in underwater log recovery, and I'd like to believe we're making progress, and maybe sometime in the foreseeable future we can report some progress on that.
Harvesting has had one good result. It has increased the recreational potential of the reservoir and made boating much safer. And the company still hopes a way can be found so that the availability of the wood can create additional jobs.
If in the process we can generate employment for people in the area, so much the better. Certainly we have been getting due credit from the people in the area and making a significant effort in a cleanup operation to date for the past 12, 15 years, something like that. But even with significant outlay, and I think we're spending something on the order of $350,000 to $400,000 a year, it's in the greater scheme of things a very small fraction of a percent per year.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thanks for staying with us. 431 Air Demonstration Squadron, commonly known as the Snowbirds, are a Canadian icon comprised of Canadian Armed Forces members and National Defence Public Service employees. Let us return to the archives to the 1991 Air Show in Prince Rupert.
In an era when there seems to be few cultural icons Canadians can hold on to proudly, the Snowbirds continue to perform to large crowds across the country. The Snowbirds seem to be a particularly Canadian entity. Their home base is Moose Jaw, where they practice during winter months in 40 below weather, and they're named after a particularly Canadian bird. It wasn't surprising then that a couple of thousand people turned out on Digby Island to catch their act in Prince Rupert for Airport Day in May. The Snowbird pilots are recruited from the Canadian Forces and spend usually 2 years with the team. Captain Mark Robert is one of the new recruits for the Snowbirds. He started his stint with the aerobatic team last November and has just 7 performances under his belt. Robert says because he's new at the job, he still gets a thrill from performing.
When you strap into the aircraft, you know that you're ready to perform and you want to be at your peak, so the adrenaline starts pumping a little bit. But it's not scary per se. A lot of people ask us that question. And it's not routine, like you just pointed out. So you need a healthy dose of adrenaline to keep yourself pumped and ready to go.
Now, there's no computers on board, so how do they keep each other where you're supposed to be online? Is that part of the captain's job, or?
Well, there's only one person in each aircraft, and for example, I was flying number 3. I'm just staring at Leeds aircraft, and I'm concentrating very hard, and I'm moving the controls constantly to avoid him and to stay in position as best I can. So it's, and like you said, these aircraft are 27 years old. There are no computers on board, and it's seat of the pants.
Is it pretty draining to go through a show like that?
Well, I don't know if you could tell, it is raining out, but when the guys got out of the cockpits, they were wet from sweating, not from the rain. So yeah, it's quite a workout.
In terms of fighter jets, though, the Snowbirds rank quite low. It's considered a trainer for pilots who will later fly planes such as the F-18 or something like the T-33 Silver Star. Lieutenant Brad Williams accompanied the Snowbirds from Comox on Vancouver Island in his T-33. He says the Silver Star is a step above the Snowbirds as far as performance goes. It's faster and is used in more practical operations.
It's training for everybody else. We help train fighter pilots to do air intercepts, and we help train the Navy to do firing on targets, airborne targets, doing about 250 miles per hour. This is just one of our 4 aircraft that we have on the squadron, and the Snowbirds are a slightly different aircraft. They're a slower trainer type aircraft from Moose Jaw.
So these ones are actually a bit higher performance?
A little bit. We do about 100 knots faster, and we can go a little higher, a little longer than the Tudor can.
Not all the military aircraft on hand were fast-flying jets. The craft that attracted the most attention, other than the Snowbirds, was a Sikorsky Sea King anti-submarine helicopter. The chopper had recently seen active duty in the Persian Gulf, and one of its crew also is freshly back from the Gulf War. Lieutenant Greenwell is a special officer on the Sea King. He's an American on exchange from the U.S. Air Force and says it's an interesting assignment.
There's an exchange, and I'm not sure how long it's been since this has been going on, but it has been for some years, to my knowledge anyways, and I was in the right place at the right time, lucky enough to get the slot, and there's a Canadian right now filling my boots down in the States.
So whereabouts are you from then?
I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. This is where I was posted from the States, but originally my hometown's from North Carolina.
So is this, I guess, quite a bit quieter duty than touring the Gulf, eh?
Yes, it can get quite lonely in the Gulf. You'd be surprised.
Without a doubt, Prince Rupert's first ever attempt at an air show was a success as far as attendance is concerned. However, organizers aren't running about to do another one next year. They're taking time now to assess the show and perhaps try one again in a few years' time, perhaps when the Snowbirds fly over Digby Island once more.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The Marine Communication and Traffic Services Officer provides communications and marine traffic services to a diversified clientele composed of marine transport industry, different federal and provincial departments, recreational boaters, and fishers. Let us return to archives to get a glimpse of their day's work.
Southwesterly winds of 5 to 10 knots. Risk of gusting and thunder showers late in the day. Sunny with cloudy periods today.
Station calling Nimbus Radio. Go to channel 27, over.
In 30 years of radio operating, I never had a day like yesterday. 15 distress calls in 1 hour. Well, as it turned out, only 2 of them were genuine. The rest, they were people overreacting, mostly. Guys running low on fuel. There was a kid who sat on channel 16 for half an hour calling "Help Me." Took us half the day to track him down. He didn't need any help. His parents left him with a radio to play with. A nice toy, they thought, to keep him quiet. You see, it's not a problem for us to cope with the emergencies. Canadian Coast Guard radio stations monitor all channels assigned to their particular region. Our problem is trying to sort out what's for real and being able to communicate clearly on channel 16, the designated distress, safety, and calling channel.
Motor vessel Cepheus, Sierra Victor Quebec Foxtrot, ETA 1325 local, over.
The commercial operators are okay. They're well trained and certified. They understand what the radio is for.
1416. Ice boom cell right. Bravo.
San Anthony Coast Guard Radio, channel 24, over.
2-4 up.
St. John's Coast Guard Radio, St. John's Coast Guard Radio. This is the Avalon Queen, Victor Kilo 4214. Request telephone call to Corner Brook, over.
Western Investor. This is Salmon Chaser, over.
The fishermen, by and large, they're pretty good when it comes to using the radio. But there still are many who could benefit by spending a few minutes with the Department of Communications Guide for the radio telephone operator.
Chaser, Western Investor out.
Marietta, Victor Kilo 5220, Cecil Coast Guard, go to channel 24, over.
Jack, you do know how to work this fine vessel.
Ace, Jerry, I'm an ace. I memorized the instruction manual last night.
So, what can we do to celebrate this maiden voyage?
Catch a few fish, get this thing back in one piece.
It's the increased use of marine radios by pleasure craft that gives us the real headache. Not everyone, mind you. I can tell in a flash when I hear them who's licensed and certified and who's not. The licensed boaters use their call signs. They'll make contact on channel 16, then get off and go to a working channel to complete their communication. The rest, well, there must be thousands of boaters on the coasts and on the lakes who stick a radio in their boat and figure that the airwaves are all theirs and no one else's. Used to be, years ago, only commercial shipping used radios. Now, almost everybody can buy one.
Venus, Victor Zulu 6732. This is Camista, Victor Zulu 7902. Over.
Take Steve here. He and his wife Joan are probably going to be okay with their radio.
Victor Zulu 6732. Roger, Steve. Go to 68.
Venus, Victor Zulu 6732. This is Camista, Victor Zulu 7902. We'll meet you at 1700 hours for dinner. Over.
They have a license for the radio, and they both got operator's certificates from the local DOC office. It's not expensive. It's not difficult. I don't understand why everyone doesn't do it.
We'll look out for you near the beach on Fox Island. See you then. Out.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
May Day got its start as an international distress call in 1923. It was the idea of Frederick Mockford, a senior radio officer at Crichton Airport in London. He came up with the idea of Mayday because it sounded like the French word m'aider, which means help me. In this final segment of Open Connection, we follow a Mayday call.
We're the Sikaluka, somewhere north of Sammy's Cove. We think. My buddy's having a heart attack. He needs medication immediately.
Sikaluka, this is Camista, Victor Zulu 7902. Say again, do not shout. Speak slowly and clearly. Over.
This is the Sikaluka. We're north of Sammy's Cove. The owner of the boat is having a heart attack. I don't know what to do. I can't operate the boat. I've got to get him back to shore. Over.
Sikaluka, this is Camista. We're in the vicinity of your vessel. We'll attempt to meet you and contact the Coast Guard in order to arrange a transfer to an ambulance. Please stand by. Over.
You're on channel 16?
Yes.
Try and raise the Coast Guard.
Mayday relay, Mayday relay, Mayday relay, Nimbus Coast Guard. This is Camista, Victor Zulu 7902. Do you read? Over.
Camista, Victor Zulu 7902. This is Nimbus Radio. Over.
Nimbus Radio, this is Camista. We're in contact with Sikaluka. It's somewhere north of Sammy's Cove. Occupant suffering from a heart attack needs immediate medical attention. Can you assist? Over.
Camista, this is Nimbus Radio. Roger, please stand by. Break.
All stations, all stations, all stations. This is Nimbus Coast Guard Radio. Silence. Mayday. Out. Break.
Camista, this is Nimbus Radio.
Can you provide description of distress vessel? Over.
Nimbus Radio, Camista. Roger, stand by. Sikaluka. This is Camista. Can you give us a description of your boat? Over.
The boat has a beige hull with wood trim, length about 10 meters. Over.
Roger, Sikaluka. Nimbus Radio, this is Camista. The vessel in distress has a beige hull, wood trim, and is about 10 meters long.
There they are.
We have visual contact and are proceeding towards the Sikaluka. Over.
Roger, Camista. We're dispatching a rescue vessel to the Sikaluka and an ambulance to the marina. Please continue to transmit your call sign at 1-minute intervals to assist Coast Guard vessel in locating you. And please be advised, there's a storm front moving rapidly to your area. Over. See what I mean? Joan and Steve are not pro operators, but they took the trouble to learn how to use their radio. Before making a call, any call, they listen first to make sure they're not interrupting someone else's transmission, and they use proper procedure when placing a call. They knew how to handle a Mayday relay. How come we could hear them, but not the Sikaluka? Well, maybe he had a bad connection to his antenna or was on low power, so his signal just didn't reach us. Luckily, the Camista was close enough, so Joan and Steve could pick it up. If you're going to have a radio, it's got to be properly installed and regularly maintained. And you don't have to yell into a microphone.
Coast Guard is coming! Over there!
If transmission conditions are bad, speak in a normal tone of voice, clearly, precisely, and if need be, use the standard phonetic alphabet.
Advise RCC on scene at this time. 1550 local. Over.
Roger, Bitter. Nimbus Radio out.
Joe, the stretcher.
Yeah, stay on board. Get this boat back in.
Okay, easy.
Thanks.
Okay, you guys, we're gonna get ready.
Nimbus Coast Guard Radio, Bittern. Advise RCC, injured person on board. ETA docket 1610 local. Stop. Weather conditions on scene at this time. Heavy rain, strong winds.
And, very important, when a station is no longer in distress, the radio silence must be canceled so that the channel can go back to normal operations. This may be done by the station that was in distress, or in this case, by the station that controlled the distress traffic. Mayday, all stations, all stations, all stations. This is Nimbus Coast Guard Radio 2115, Coordinated Universal Time. Sikaluka, silence fini.
Injured person now rescued. Nimbus Radio out.
This was a justifiable Mayday distress situation. Jack was in imminent danger and required immediate assistance. But let's say you're out of fuel and need a tow. If the weather's good, your situation is not imminent danger. In this case, you use the emergency call pan-pan. Another priority message is the safety signal, which is used for navigation or weather warnings. And remember to use your call sign. And Jack, he recovered just fine. Then Jerry persuaded him to get his radio license and certificate.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our majesty within. I'm Robert Pictou.